Harlem Network News is a media platform dedicated to assuring Harlem is informed, engaged, and called to action. This is a panel discussion with Senator Cordell Cleare on Clean Slate. Thank you.
Had come earlier. They've already been seen by our legal people, by our attorneys. So I want to give it up for everyone who was here earlier today, who was able to see the people who are the star of today. Today we are making history. I'm New York State Senator Cordell Cleare. I represent I represent, in my mind, the best district in the state, the great country of Harlem.
Yes.
And where we are right now, which they now call West Harlem, and a significant portion of East Harlem, El Barrio, a portion of the Upper West Side, and a tiny piece of Washington Heights. It is a very diverse communities, make them one big community in one district. But many of us are plagued by incarceration and re-entry and the troubles that come with that. So, I was happy to be elected to the state senate, where I got to meet another great senator from New York State. I'll say he's the second best district. All right. But, he brought forward a critical piece of legislation, which was called Clean Slate, and has been working on it for many years, prior to him being elected, prior to me being elected, and has stuck with it, fiercely fighting in the state legislature. I was able to join him in that fight, and he got that bill passed. And our governor finally signed it into law, and today is when that law becomes live. Let me tell you how this relates to something I was going through last Tuesday. When people said, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? We're going to keep fighting. We're going to keep working. And this is the type of thing that you need to look at. The work that continued for almost 9 years, maybe 10 years. And one day it happened. So if we can get to this point for 9, 10 years of fighting, we can get through 4 years. And everything's going to be okay. So there's a great panel here today. I'm not the one, it's not my job to introduce them. But I want to recognize some other folks in the room who are going to speak today. And I'm so glad this brother's here because, we can't write people off. Folks should not have to continuously pay for something that they did. And in my community, when I look at how many people were incarcerated, especially during mass incarceration, the age that people were incarcerated, this was 18, 19, 20s. No one in this room is who they were when they were 20, or 25, or 30. The mental maturity, the emotional maturity, all the things that you have come to be now, you know that that's not where you were then. And the same is the case for people who made a mistake at that time, or not necessarily made a mistake, but wound up being involved in this justice system. If they have gone through it, if they have served their time and they have paid the price, now we need to get on with their lives. They need to be able to have what they need to get on with their lives. And that means a job that can sustain them and or their families. That means furthering their education for whatever it is that they want to study or be. That means housing. You need a place to live. You have to be able to get into housing. You need a place to live that you can afford to live in. So all those things are very important for people getting back to their lives. And then, it's also about being made whole. Usually when you pay for something, that means you paid for it, you're finished. And people want to feel emotionally whole. They want to be a part of this society in every single way once they have done what they're supposed to do. So that's what today is about for me. And I'm sure for everyone else on the panel, they're going to give you introductions. And this is a great number of people. We have another, make sure. Very good. We have some great guests here today, and one of them I'd like to hear from because I know he has a tight schedule, but he's my council member who I'm so proud to have as a council member, Yusef Salam. He knows a little bit about this.
First, I want to say, may the peace, mercy, and blessings from the owner of all peace, mercy, and blessings be upon each and every one of you. You know, this is a good day. This is a day that, you know, we prayed for those of us who've been run over by the spiteful of justice in particular, because we wanted relief. We wanted the opportunity to be able to move past a mistake if we even made a mistake. Because sometimes, just like those of us who know, there's a lot of us who may not have made a mistake, but who was run over, like my good friend Jeff Deskovic, attorney Jeff Deskovic, who's in the audience. You know, we really represent those of us who know, like Eddie Gibbs as well, the microcosm of the macrocosm of cases just like ours. And we've always said those who've been closest to the pain should have a seat at the table. The great thing about today is that not only do we get the opportunity to hear about this great legislation, but we get the opportunity to hear about those who have been fighting for things like this, oftentimes without pay or without proper pay. You know, I think about what the senator just said, and I'm trying to figure out how to manage my words as it relates to the past political events. But quite simply, if someone who is put in the highest office of the land and who has a convicted felon, not just one, not just two, but multiple convicted felons in all kinds of cases that are presented, but yet still he is able to bypass, not like Monopoly, go right to jail, right? No, that's what should happen. That's what happened to most of us who was run over, right? But now to be in the highest office of the land, to try to make sure that you put all of the pieces in place that will allow you to continue in the same way that you've always continued. Never forget the arc of the moral justice is long, and it bends towards justice. That justice may not necessarily be seen in this world, but karma is real. And the truth of the matter is that you want to be on the right side of karma, so that when your ticket is called, you will be able to say, I'm thankful that I did a good job, and it will be said about you, job well done. So I'm telling you, what's going on right now is about folks who have been paying attention, who have been looking at the issues, who have been wanting this type of thing to happen in our community, because so many of us, as our senator has said, science has already shown us that especially the male's mind is not fully developed in some cases until they're 27. So imagine the conditions that our people have to deal with, who have been pushed into the margins of life, who didn't decide to be there. Many of us know that there's a condition in the Black community that says you're going to be dead or in jail before you reach the age of 21. I didn't escape that. 35 years ago, I was 15 years old. Now I'm 50, and I'm able to do something about the conditions in my community, but I'm still yet young enough to get the good counsel from the activists and attorneys like my good friend Roger Warren. All of the folks here, see my good friend Jumani, you know, I mean, these are people who I love and I respect, who are here. Senator Zelnor, I mean, like, Eddie, you already know.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I could go on and on, but today is a good day. Today is a good day. And so I'm gonna yield the mic. Before I yield the mic in City Council, I do what they always do. I like to have all of my good words associated not only with Senator Cordell Cleare, but all of the things that are going to be said here as I exit, because I got about maybe 5 more things that I have to do. The councilman's work is never done. I'm a councilman 24/7, 365, 367, 368.
That's
But thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilman. We appreciate those words and you stopping by here today. I just want to get a quick word from my brother Al Taylor, Assemblyman, before we get the panel started.
Thank you, my sister. How y'all doing this afternoon?
Good.
This is a great day, folks. How you doing? Wait a minute. Something's happening today that gives us light and hope that didn't happen on Tuesday. Are y'all with me? Yeah. Man, I just wish I had somebody understood. Brother Tony Rico, thank you for the conversation because hope is alive. Yeah. This represents hope. This is hope for your children, your neighbors, your grandchildren in the future that we put something in place that's going to make a difference. Are you happy, glad about it? I'm going to use the other hat as a perfect, but I'm going to leave real quickly. Because you don't understand the excitement that's associated with this and the opportunity that we're changing things. Thank you, Senators, my brother from Brooklyn. How much time they got? I'm not putting a watch on how long you can be in the borough. Mr. Williams, I got 2 million up here from Brooklyn. I'm just joking, y'all. It's good to see you all, this esteemed panel, but this is a great opportunity to understand what is this all about. It's transformative. The person in your house that's laying on the couch or feeling down about themselves, they can't get employment, they can't move into that apartment because they've had this stigma. But I want you to watch out for this as I take my seat. Make sure they're not buying this service somewhere else because their radio ad says, you can get this done, but they're doing that off the backs of what this legislative body has done for free, and let your neighbors and your friends know that they can get this, get qualified information without buying nothing that's already free. God bless you. Thank you so much, Senator. Thank you.
all right. So we're going to make some introductions, and I'm going to put this in the hand of that has been out here for decades. For decades doing the work, folks. This isn't all that you see today didn't just happen today. And Jeff, it's great to see you here. And thank you for the work that you did on the Central Park 5 case with us. And I was a staffer then. That was a whole nother life for me with Bill Perkins. But thank you for that. And thank you for being here today. And also Roger was connected to that case very closely. But this is work that y'all have been doing. So this is Zelma's bill. I got to be a part of it, but this is a part of all of the work that we've all been doing. And I'm just honored that you're here today to lead this panel. Thank you.
Good afternoon. As Cordell said, my name is Roger Wareham. I am a human rights attorney. I'm also quote-unquote political activist. I'm a member of an organization called the December 12th Movement, and I've also been involved. I was one of the attorneys in vacating the sentences and getting a settlement for the then Central Park 5. What I'm going to do first is let me just say this first. Part of the work that I do is not only local and national, but it's also international. And since 1989, I've been going to the United Nations, to the human rights mechanisms. What Malcolm talked about in terms of us taking our issues, not restricting it to the geographical and legal boundaries of the United States, but taking it to the world. And in that process, we took the conditions that Black people face to the United Nations. And one of the things that we did at one point, when we were going there, a lot of things came up around people were getting stopped around the country, and it's called driving while Black, and that you got stopped on the New Jersey Turnpike because they saw that you were Black and stopped you. And in that process, we broadened it. We coined the term breathing while Black. That when you're born in this country, there's an assumption that you're a criminal, that you were guilty until proven innocent, and it plays out in many different ways. So that this legislation is a step in terms of reversing that process, not eliminating it, but reversing it. So I think that's the framework in which we want to begin. And I will ask each of the panelists just to quickly introduce themselves, and then we have some questions that we want to ask them, and then I think we'll take questions from the audience in terms of the particularity. So I'll start here with my colleague and cousin, Tony Rico.
Good afternoon. Roger and I have serve as the moderators. So I'm going to get out the way so that we can get to the panel. I just want to say that a long time ago, people put a lot of interest in stripping us of something called hope. And they recognized that that was the way in which you could enslave people forever if you deprive them of hope. This bill is a step towards reintroducing into the criminal justice system something called hope. And so I'm here, happy to be a part of the moderation, and the next person can introduce himself.
I'm going to pass my introduction off for a moment to Dr. Jeff. Is that okay?
Well, everybody can come on down.
Yeah?
No, just say who you are.
Okay, no problem. That's gotta get you the boss. I'm Ruben Wells, former New York City Council member from South Jamaica, Queens. Jeff, South. I was in the council and I had the honor to serve with a lot of people, especially the public advocate, Jamani Williams. I was prosecuted, convicted, and incarcerated for 2.5 years. Came home and got exonerated, and was fortunate enough to have a strong support system, Dr. Jeff being one of them, and a lot of people, Jamani and a lot of people was behind me, so I was able to come back home and form an organization in which we were able to do this work with Senator Zell and Myrie and Assemblywoman Gibbs and Senator Cordell Cleare.
Hi, my name is Paul Keefe. I'm Vice President for Legal Services at Community Service Society of New York. We were one of the beginning organizations behind Clean Slate. We're very happy to see it passed, and we're providing legal services here today. If anyone has a question about how Clean Slate applies to them or anything else that we can answer, we're happy to get a copy of your criminal record and answer to see where you fall with eligibility. So thanks.
Peace and blessing, love and light, everybody. Glad to see everyone here. Those been a rough maybe 10 days or so. So everybody just breathe. We're still here, the Most High is in charge. We've been here before, our ancestors have been here before, so we're gonna keep it moving. As mentioned, I'm the public advocate of the city of New York. I'm very proud to be here to support the work that Senator Zellner and so many on this table have been doing. What I hope is that we do a better job of explaining how this is actually about public safety. I think some of the things that we saw, we allow other people to grab a message and take charge of that message. But when we talk to people and have a conversation about what public safety is, almost always people inherently understand what it is and what it isn't. This Clean Slate Act is part of, I hope, changing tough on crime to be serious about safety. It's something that we really have to do. We can't ignore it, the emotions that people are feeling. But these are the type of things in conjunction with others, we can say we're gonna actually make your community safer. The best way to explain that simply incarcerating as many black and brown people as possible does not equate safety is because those communities that have done it are still the communities we deem the least safe at this moment in time. So I'm looking forward to the rest of the conversation.
How you doing? Assemblyman Eddie Gibbs from East Harlem, 68th Assembly District. I made history 2021 by becoming the first formerly incarcerated New York State Legislature. I want to shout out my colleague who isn't here today, Assemblywoman Catalina Cruz, and my other colleague, State Senator Myrie, for this wonderful, wonderful piece of legislation. It's necessary, and I'll get into the details of it later, but it's just a wonderful piece of legislation. I want to shout out.
Thank you, Assemblyman. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm State Senator Zelma Myrie. Let me first thank Senator Cleare for stamping my passport, allowing me to come to Harlem and be with all of y'all, and to all of the panelists who've done such great work. I had the honor of sponsoring Clean Slate, but it is not just my fight alone. This is something that our communities inherently knew, as the public advocate said, this entire time. And we knew that people point fingers and blame and name calling. Rarely did they extend a hand to help us, to opportunity. And that's what this legislation has been about. That's what it will be about. And I'm really excited to talk about it this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Senator Cleare. Thank you, Ruben, for inviting me today. Just very quickly, I'd like to share with you from a psychological aspect the importance of this particular legislation. because after this I have to run to the theater, so please forgive me for that. So this legislation, and we talked about this in an interview earlier with NBC, for me as a board certified clinical psychologist is so important in working with so many people who have had perhaps some convictions or have had other issues where they have been involved with the criminal justice system. Once they've paid their price, once they have paid their price to society, once they have been able to atone for whatever it is that they have done, once they have been able to pay their debt to society, something still remains, and that's the stigma that you heard from Assemblyman Taylor talk about. No matter how free we may think that we are legally, psychologically, we remain in prison. We are perhaps the harshest self-critic. There are people who may intentionally or unintentionally remind us of a past. I think it's important for us to understand that this particular legislation can do so much in helping people. It's not just about society and being productive, but it's also about being able to say that I am now able to be out in society, I'm able to be proud of myself, I'm able to enhance my self-image and my self-esteem. And there's a lot being said these days around imposter syndrome, right? And so we see this imposter syndrome, thinking you're a fraud, not thinking much about yourself, being able to go out into the world and do amazing things, but doubting yourself. We see that with people who are very high achieving, but we also see it with people who may have been accused of a crime, whether they were committed it or not, and being involved with that legal system. So this not only helps that individual or helps the individuals legally, it not only helps them as far as employment, it not only helps them as far as family and coming back into society, but it helps them in their own self-concept, being able to get rid of those psychological demons that may plague them for years and years, no matter what their success may be. So I applaud this legislation. I am so glad it's finally happening. I believe this is going to be the 11th state here. We've seen this in New Zealand. We've seen this in other parts of the world, and it has worked. And I hope that we can see in this political system that we're in, now I'm veering from the psychology, that this allows us to be on the right side of history.
And that's what we expect from our panelists today in terms of just the different aspects, and I do understand what Dr. has believed, so I'm glad that he laid that out. I think what we want to do, right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're taking his visa away?
Thank you so much, everyone. God bless. Good luck to everyone.
Something I didn't mention at the beginning, and I'm sorry, I was so excited to get into this. I really want to give thanks to President Goodrow and City College for allowing us to be here in this space today and for making sure that we had this facility. And there's some other good people who are here today, like Mr. Angelo Lambosis. He is the head of the Charles B. Rangel, Infrastructure Workforce Institute here at City College, which is geared around preparing our community for the workforce, and that's very important because once you get your record sealed, yeah, you got to get in there, and we got to help you get there. So that's one of the things that he's doing. We also have Soila Hermina, who's here from the Department of Social Services in the back. So if anybody needs to look into anything related to that, SNAP, food stamps, and other benefits, she's here to be helpful. We also have Brother Jakari Green, who's the Director of Marketing for Palante Harlem. That is an organization that fights for housing and fights around housing, because really as we struggle to get more affordable housing, we have to preserve the affordable housing that we already have. That's a way to get there. And also Yannick Wood, who's here representing the National Urban League, which is a very important organization in our culture and for our people and for our community. So we're happy to see you here today, supporting and look forward to the work that's coming from you in the future. And thank you, Roger. That's it.
Well, you got a pass.
Thank you.
So you know what we're gonna do is we have some questions. Some of them are directed, and I think we'll start out with Mr. Myrie. You have permission. I was born and grew up in Harlem. I live in Brooklyn, so I have like dual citizenship. So you're good. So the question is, what was the driving motivation behind introducing the Clean Slate Act in New York State, and how do you see it addressing long-standing issues in our criminal justice system?
Yeah, and I appreciate the question. And like I said in the opening remarks, I of course am very honored and grateful to have sponsored the legislation, but this is a fight that has been fought many, many years before I assumed office by many, many community leaders and impacted individuals. I'll tell one brief story. After a mass shooting in my district, and I make pains to call it a mass shooting because we don't often say that in our communities, we don't get the headlines, but when 4 more people are shot and injured or killed, that is a mass shooting, and that happened on a block in my district. I showed up, spoke to some of the guys, and one of the people came up to me and said, "Z, do you think any one of us want to be on the corner? Do you think any one of us want to pick up a gun to resolve conflict?" He said, "I just did a 10-year bid. I'm living in my mom's house because I can't afford a place. My girl has a baby on the way, and I just got fired from my job at a restaurant down the block once they found out that I had a conviction record." That was the motivating factor. How do we help people like him, our communities who've been suffering for years, not because people don't want to do the right thing, but because we as a society have determined that you should be perpetually punished for having a conviction record. So we got to work, and we had many organizations, some of which you will hear from today, who helped make that happen legislatively. But the impact that I hope to have is very much like what the public advocate said. We have allowed other people to own the public safety space and to tell us what public safety looks like. But we've always known that if you gave us the opportunity, if you gave us a job, if you gave us real alternatives, that we would be safe. We don't like crime as much as everybody else doesn't like crime. We don't like violence. We don't like poverty. But we've been forced into both of these conditions and circumstances, and we have to utilize every tool at our disposal to help get rid of that. So that was the motivating factor. My hope is that 10 years from now, we're gonna look at November 2024, and we're gonna say, wow, there was a spike in economic opportunity and activity in the city. We saw more people get jobs. We saw communities get safer. What happened in that blip? And my hope is that we'll be able to point to the Clean Slate Act as one of the motivating factors.
Thank you. I was going to ask you comments from Mr. Brother Wills in terms of what does this mean? What does this mean to you, or what could it mean to people who've been in your situation? Just give people an idea of what your situation was and how this would affect it.
Oh, I mean, I don't know whether to call him Reverend Al or Assemblyman Al Taylor, because he summed it up perfectly. It means that we can stop telling people that help and hope is on the way. The help is here now. People can finally rest a little easier knowing that this was done. One of the biggest things that was on the mind of a lot of people when you're incarcerated and when you come home is that nobody cares. And I used to be on lines, going to medical and different things like that, and no one knew who I was, but I would constantly hear that. And then when I would say something like, "Don't worry about it, that could be fixed, or this could be fixed," they would say, "Why? They let me fix it, they didn't care," right? But it's not the fact that they didn't care, they didn't know. And now that they know, work like this is getting done. So I want to just make sure that those people who, because behind the bars and the gates and the walls, they're going to get these messages. Social media reaches them now. So I want to make sure that they know that help is here. And when you come home, you don't have to worry about the things that you may have had to worry it's your first time in, or the things that you think you're going to have to worry about. This is going to be there to help you. And until when you first come home, it reaches that age of 3 years or 8 years, there's going to be a lot of other things that are going to be there to help you. We have a lot of elected officials that are invested in the betterment of you and your family. So those are the things that I would hope they take away from this.
Thank you.
You know, after representing people in courts here and around our country for the last 4 decades, one of the things that I realized is that what has been stripped of people is something that our grandparents had. It was a 4-letter word. It was called hope. And so what the legislation does is it infuses hope into the system. And just to pick up on what Brother Will said, that people on the inside know, look, if I do this vocational training, if I do this educational thing, there's a possibility that I could put this thing behind me and I can get employed. So I wanted to just pick up on Brother Eddie Gibbs, who I knew back before he was an assemblyman in that other life. And I want to say, you know, look, you've walked the path. You know, you were able to accomplish something great and in turn give back something. What does this mean to people like yourself who've done time and have had to turn their lives around in real time?
In real time. Thanks for the question, Tony. You know, first and foremost, being there, being able to chime in on the legislation, to add emphasis and talk with the sponsors and being able to be part of it was just unreal. Unbeknownst to me at the time when I got to the New York State Assembly, I had created my own clean slate. And through understanding the legislation, I knew how important it was. And I believe I asked Carolina, what are you here for? Because it was just that important. And we both cried because we thought God sent me there because at this particular time, at this particular moment, we had an opportunity to really get it over the hump. And we did just that. Tony, you know, you see me on both sides of the fence, and, you know, to say that, you know, to be here, beyond the blessing, it's a huge responsibility, and you're carrying the weight of 2.3 million New Yorkers with a criminal conviction, and they all looking at you saying, don't let us down. Mm-hmm. Well, this legislation relieves some of that stress because now they have an opportunity to do just what I did, but with help and with assistance. Tony, you know, I worked with Murray Richmond for over 10 years and going back and forth to court with you and him and learning some things. I was privileged. You know, I had a Jewish attorney who pretty much guided me to the certificate of good conduct and to where I am today. Many New Yorkers don't have that opportunity. And so that's why this legislation is so important, Tony, and just to be a living part and a living proof of it, I will continue to hold you guys up. And again, I want to shout out the legislation and the sponsors, Myrie and Kathleen Cruz. Wonderful, magnificent. And I can't wait till the 2.3 million New Yorkers start taking the benefit and advantage of it.
Thank you. Wanted to ask Mr. Keith, what role does this legislation play in terms of your organizations and your type of organizations in terms of how do you see that working and monitoring, what effect it will have on the people that you service?
Thank you. So we came to this work through our Next Door project, which helps people get their criminal records, clean them up, apply for cases that can be sealed, apply for certificates of relief and certificates of good conduct, and then if they experience discrimination based upon their record in employment, which is illegal, we bring those cases as well. So we help people get licenses, clearance to do a job, appeal a decision if they've been fired for a job. And we've been in this work for a long time. We worked with Jamali back in 2015, passed the Fair Chance Act in New York City, and the amendments in 2021. And so what we really see and what the Next Door Project does is we're out in the community, mainly working with workforce development organizations to help their clients get past the barriers that are presented by the records. Because there are lots of organizations out there that, get you a certificate, they get you food handlers, OSHA, they help you train for green jobs and things like that. But if you run into a problem because of your record, maybe you have an open warrant that you didn't know about, maybe there's an employer that's not going to hire you, that's the kind of expertise that a regular job developer isn't going to know how to handle. So that's when we step in that instance. And our whole goal is to really help people address problems with their record while they're in that kind of program, so they're not held back once they graduate. And so the effect that we've seen, and I've seen this already, it's just amazing after doing this work since 2008 to be able to counsel someone and say, when this becomes effective, your record's going to go away. It's going to be sealed. And before that, you would have to go to the judge to get it done, you'd have to wait 10 years to do that. And there were all these sealing laws that were on the books, but we knew that less than 1% of the eligible people took advantage of them, because you did have to go through that whole process, and you did feel like you knew an employer. So the automatic provisions of this really help. And then to the public safety angle, for people who aren't eligible yet, I can tell them the date when they will be eligible, and they say, okay, they can see if they make the right choices, that record's going to go away. If they're out in the community and they're doing the things that they do, it's going to go away. And that's sort of how we think your record should work. It should work that way, right? After a certain amount of time, it should go away. And that, amazingly, it was not the case for so long, but it is now. So this is a very happy day for all of us.
Yeah, and that's a very important perspective, because life is about perspective and how you see things. Because some people say, well, wait a minute, it's going to be 3 years for a misdemeanor, 8 years for a felony. But the reality, that's a negative look. Here's a positive look to us. Those are boundaries. And it gives you a post to say, in 3 years, I can finish my associate's degree, my bachelor's degree. Yeah. In 8 years, I can do this and I can do that. And so, Eddie this hit you, Eddie. I know, I felt it too. Because I can say it was a time in life where, few people saw it, you knew it, and you had an opportunity to not only live it, but get in a position to turn around and help other people get where you are. So, Jumani, I wanted to come to you with respect to this. Folks are sitting back and they crying in their milk or whatever over the fact that this individual was reelected. Our people have seen far worse than this, and here we are. But Jumani, the question that both Rod and I had for you is, what's the real bigger implication of this politically? As we talk about what Eddie's done individually, what's the bigger implication of this?
So, one, I want everybody to feel the emotions. If you got to cry and milk a little bit, do it. Just make sure you got to come off the air at some point. You got a battle to continue to do. So, but one, just for context, I always try to say, the system's operating how it's designed to operate. And that's one of the things I always try to make sure we frame. Because, quote unquote, founding fathers, I always say if they woke up, they'd be like, I don't know why you had a black president or women were voting, but otherwise you did a pretty good job of pushing forward the system that we put in place. And so it is operating how it's designed to operate. And so I had, a long time ago, given up from saying we have to reform it, because that's not what it wants. We need new systems in place to do the things that we say we want to do. And to me, this is a part of it. So this system, the people who are up were designed that way, people who are down were designed that way. That doesn't mean anybody who's alive now, black, white, brown, helped design it or responsible for it. But all of us are responsible for the system that we put in place for my two daughters and for their daughters and their kids when it comes. So that's where I'm at. Like, all of us have to figure out how to change that system. And then, the things that make us our most productive selves, two of those things are being able to have adequate and affordable housing and being able to have a job. And those are two things we make it the hardest for people coming home to get. So what do you expect is going to happen if you can't get a job and you cannot get housing? Everybody's gonna eat. Nobody's gonna sit around and starve to death if they can help it. And so trying to tell folks and explain, what we've done is equated punishment with safety and prevention. So there's a discussion that can be had about what, punishment, whether it's needed and what it is. But what we should be able to clearly say is just punishing people does not equate safety and security. So the country is 4% of the world's population. We're about 25% of all jail population. We are one of the most punished jail societies on the globe. We are not one of the safest societies on the globe, by far. So those two things are equal. But what we have to remember is people get emotionally attached to stuff, so we can't ignore that. As we see on Tuesday, you can't ignore people's emotions, but you should help guide them and walk through those emotions. Like if safety is really what you're talking about, let's figure out how it is that we get there. So the implications of this is hopefully reframing the conversation, but also people can now have a version of hope, like you said, that they may not have had. Like, what's the point of doing all this if I still can't get out? I still can't get, everybody's harassing me, I can't. Now there is a plan, 3 years, 8 years, or we can do this. Maybe we can start, we shouldn't give up hope. I'm probably not gonna do this right now. All I gotta do is hold on for 3 years and I can start something fresh. And when we're doing the Fair Chance Act, which is commonly called ban the box, we grappled with this about what happens. And so what we found out is that after a certain amount of time, if you've committed a misdemeanor and another set of time if you commit a felony, you're no more likely to recommit a crime than the rest of the general population. True. So if that is the case, what is the point of perpetual punishment for what's been done? That's not for safety reasons, that's something else. And so we have to be able to have different conversations and listen to the communities who are most beset by these crimes, who are most beset by crime. Because sometimes the loudest voices are not even the ones that who are dealing with this. And those of us who have been dealing with them are trying to tell people what these communities need. So I'm so excited about the Clean Slate Act. I also want to make sure we don't stop, because it's great that you can now start to try to get a house, housing, and try to get a job, but if they don't exist for you, that's a whole nother step. So we still got some more battles that we definitely have to fight. But the framework of it is really, really important, so people can understand where we are, why we're here. We're here on purpose. I think it's intentional, and all of us here have to try to push back and put an entirely new system in place. And Clean Slate Act you gotta think about how much sense it actually makes. But what often happens and what has been successful is leaders cause people's emotions to override their intelligence. We have to try to find a way to unpack that so that we can really get the result that we're trying to get.
Thank you. I think at this point, we have some questions we could ask folks, but I think the reason that Senator Cleare wanted to have a public hearing so that she could hear from the public. So if you have a question, keep it short to the point, just raise your hand.
And listen, make sure it's a question. The greatest speeches have already been given. When I want a speech, if it's something that's detailed and involved, there's people around who can talk to you after, I will cut you off. So please ask questions because they're important. Your question, you're here representing many people who are not. And your question being answered is important. So don't ask and answer your question. We want you to ask questions because there's other things that we want to talk about. But I do want to hear from the public. And I'm going to give people numbers because this is what I do. I saw your hand first. I saw your hand second, third, and fourth. No, I'm sorry. I saw your hand first. I'm sorry. So the lady is 1. Remember your number. 2, 3, 4, 5.
Stand up, speak
6.
up.
1.
Just speak loud.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Greer Ellis, and with regard to the Clean Slate bill itself, because my understanding is that there are a lot of carve-outs in that bill, and that people who are convicted of Class A felonies are not considered or is not eligible for that. And I'm just wondering, are there any workarounds for those people? Because I know people who have worked, gotten themselves together, got homes, and are still being held back from this. Thank you.
That's a great question. I think that particularly for the members of the panel who are part of legislation and public policy, I think that they would be able to say that this act really is a step in the right direction. It's not like the final piece. And I think that their experiences is that change comes easier with the non-violent offenses than with the more serious violent offenses. So it's sort of, I think that what happens is that you compromise, and then what you say is, well, we sometimes the more violent felons people are doing life, or they're doing 30 years, blah, blah, blah. We need to get the help for the people that's doing the 1 to 3, the 2 to 4s, the 5, the middle ranges, and if we could get movement in that way, we'll take that, and then once we got that and that works, then we'll take on the bigger monsters. Is that so?
Yeah, and Paul, please correct me on any of the technical stuff that I missed. So one, we hear you 1,000%. I'd like to remind folks when they ask about some of the carve-outs and the exceptions that we started this bill out not with sealing, but with expungement. Those are two different things. All right, the initial bill that we had called for expungement, which is the complete destruction of the record. With sealing, the record remains, but we control who has access to it. And different states have done it different ways, but there's no state that has done expungement on the scale at which we have done sealing. And so in the legislative process, in order for me to convince, and me and others, to convince some of my colleagues that are more reluctant about this entire principle to get on board and to vote for it, we had to make some exceptions and some changes. And so on the Class A felonies, most of them are accepted from this and excluded, not all of them, but most of them are. Some sex offenses, or all sex offenses, are not available for sealing. And that, again, was in part for us to get people on board so that we could get a lot of other folks captured in this bill. But it is not the end of the process. This is a really important and big first step. And what we have learned and what we saw, frankly, from last Tuesday's results is that we have to listen to what people are saying, and we have to live, whether we agree with it or not, with what the political realities are. That is the realm in which we have to deal and make change, and that for us, it was important for us to get as much as we could in this round and then hold out hope for the next.
I just want to add, and I heard the last name, so I want to lift up Eddie Ellis. My bad, I'm sorry. But just to add to that, again, sometimes our emotions, like it's really, and we all do it. So one of the crimes that have the least recidivism is actually murder. But nobody really wants to hear that. And so the question, but it has the least recidivism of the charges, but you put that in the front and nobody really wants to hear anything else. So there's some things that trigger everybody, they just start to shut down. And that's a real reality. And so the question you make sure when you ask elected officials is the bill or the policy they put forth, is it so watered down that it's meaningless and they just put it out for a press conference? And if it's not, then you do have to try to celebrate those movements. And so when you look at this bill, it actually really has meaning. It's gonna help a lot of people, even though there are some folks that were left out. And even when I'm passing bills, there's some things like this just doesn't make sense. It's not, but the rest of the bill is not gonna move forward unless I try to acquiesce a little bit. So I always try to make sure, I'm sure our electeds and Senator Myrie and Assemblyman are saying, you try to make sure that whatever's being put out is not watered down such that nobody's actually going to be helped. And with the Clean Slate, there's a lot of people who are going to be helped. And if some of these things didn't happen, no one would have got the assistance they needed. And as was mentioned, hopefully the job of folks in the audience is to keep pushing us to make sure everyone's included, but also keep pushing to change the climate and the conversation in the streets so that it makes it easier for us to say the things and help people's emotions get a little calmed down so the intelligence can be the thing that leads the conversation.
Yeah, well, just real quick, Senator. You know, maybe about 45 minutes before the New York State Assembly passed the legislation, I delivered a 15-minute speech on the Assembly floor. And I wanted you to know when I was coming to your dad's event a couple of weeks ago to tell you, I delivered that speech in your dad's spirit. And, you know, I discussed how I felt about the governor excluding A1 murderers in the discussion, but I knew it was a political moment, such as life, right? But know that we understand and we work with RAP, release aging people in prison. I visit prisons every other day. I was just in Sharon the day before yesterday with the lifers, and they all expressed the same thing. You know, what can we do? What is the legislation going? And I told them, let's celebrate Clean Slate, but know that we haven't forgotten you guys. And I want you to know this, Alex, we haven't forgotten.
Thank you. I just want to add a little bit to that and keep it 100% real. There are people who won't even stop arresting us, let alone give us any kind of forgiveness for anything. And I am proud of this legislation. It is a great step. But do we have more to do? Lots more. But this is critical because this was a step. We pierced something. We moved. And if you know what it took in the discussions and the things that people say to and about us that are up in Albany, but we're there for it because that's what we're there for. But we need you to keep advocating, not only with us, because most of us know. I don't think there's one of us in here who isn't impacted by the criminal justice system, if not personally, someone in your family, someone you know, because that's just the way the statistics are. It's us. So we got that, but there are times, the time is gonna come. We need your help. We need you to lobby those other people. We need you to help us. When we say we're having a press conference, come out. When we say we're having a rally, come out. When we say there's a letter to be written, calls to be made, make those calls. We need you. We can't do it without you. So we're going to keep pushing because that's important. That is important. We have to keep on pushing for that and so many other things. And you know what I wanted, Jelani really summed it up earlier about hope. Delivering hope is critical and it's so important to so many people. But the hope that we're also working on is before someone even gets justice involved.
Yeah.
Okay, because these things they didn't have before they went in, a lot of people. And if we had had these things in place, a lot of people never would have wound up there. So we're fighting on every level to bring justice. We need justice in education. We need justice in employment and in jobs and in income and in business and all around. So we're fighting all these things, and no, we have not forgotten about the people who are convicted of murder. And there's a little more emotion involved in that when you talk about that, because I've literally talked to some people, like, why are you, you know, and I mean, folks talk about, you know, the victims' families.
Yeah.
You understand? And we're not insensitive
That's
to
real,
that.
that's real.
You know, and a lot of times murder happens us on us. So it's not even that. And you gotta give some room for that. And we gotta find out how we continue to work on that in our communities. But I just wanted to share that with you. You know, I love you and your dad and everybody. So, thank you. Yes.
So it feels like for me, for people who have been, many people have been convicted of crimes that they commit, there should be some kind of provisions for that.
And that's what we absolutely should take care of that on a whole nother level. For people, there should be exoneration for people who did not commit crimes, who are convicted of them, but we're talking about that. I think there's a bill for that.
There is a bill. There is a bill. Yeah. We're working on it.
Specifically. But anyway, number 2.
My name is Wilfredo Lavaquente. I am a violent felon, and I've been home about 3 years already from a 20-year prison stint. I've worked with many of you already in different things, from the package ban on down. But why do I have to be the sacrificial lamb for the people overall that aren't putting in the work in the penitentiary? The porters, the people that aren't putting in the work that everyone wants to say is public safety that comes out. So that when we come out now and we're sequestered by universities, we're sequestered by public officials to speak about our personal experiences in order to influence policy, why is it that we don't have a carve-out or exception that when you complete your degree, when you come out and you are productive, you're able to have adequate housing? Because if I didn't have adequate housing, I probably wouldn't be here right now. So I just kind of find it's funny that I'm always, as an able violent felon, put on a chopping block as a sacrificial lamb for thousands and thousands that are not putting in the work, that are habitual drug users in the penitentiary, and who come out and take advantage of these things in place. But these are the people that will represent. So what would you tell me as someone here who stood beside a lot of you with Stop, Question, and Frisk, with the package ban, with Columbia University and Mercer University? Where is my carve out or my exception?
Thank you.
You know what the answer to that question is? It's the pride and respect that people have for you. That's what it is. Because it's brothers like you who make it possible for weaker brothers to get on their feet. And it's almost like the burden that some of us have is what we do in life. A lot of what we do, we don't get rewarded for it. We don't get recognition for it. We just do it. Like, I never met you, but I could see in your face where you've been, and when you spoke, I could hear you. And so it's not much to say, but you make a difference. And you make a difference in your presence, you make a difference in your energy, and you make a difference because you care, and you're making a difference for other people. And so it's a small thing to say. We don't know each other personally, but I hear you loud and clear. And what folks have to begin to work on is we got to create jobs for people, places for people. There's so much to be done. There's so much damage that's been done to us. But keep that voice strong, man, because that's where change comes from. And without it, it doesn't happen.
So, I'm sorry. What is your name again, sir?
Alfredo Alfredo.
So, I feel you. If there was a possibility to be more than 100%, I do. And I echo what he said, but let me put it to you like this. When I came home and to this moment, they were just talking about exonerations and things like that. I've got nothing. I lost family. I lost my career. I lost housing. I lost everything. And I went upstate for 2.5 and came home. I don't have a monopoly on misery. I did it way less time than you did. But there was nothing home. There's no mechanism for me to get my money or anything like that to get replaced. And I didn't do it. I felt the same way. And I believe that some of the things that we need to look at are not just carve-outs, but other services that we, because of our experience, can get for other people. Dr. Jeff is an incredible mental health specialist. We have services like that all over the state that we can get to people. I just feel your energy. Somebody like you is somebody who I want to work with me, right? Because we can build an organization of people that look like us, that have gone through what we've gone through, to champion the other things. That's why Eddie Ellis went through what he went through. So God showed me it's not about a punishment or anything else. It's about a purpose and a plan. And there's some of us that he's not going to give you more than you can bear. There's some of us that have to go through this for other people behind us. Jeff, his story is, do you know his story? You got to get with him afterwards. His story is mind-boggling, mind-shaking, earth-shattering. But people like you, me, him, Eddie, other people like that, there's a reason why at this point in time, at this moment, God had you here and had Eddie Gibbs here and had this legislation so you can speak that and articulate it with that type of energy. I'm not going to give you no BS answers and nothing else. I'm going to tell you, we need you to be in here and work with us so that when the next guy stands up, you'll be the one that takes him in the back and say, bro, we got this, 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 and this, and this. You'll be on the front lines where you can be compensated, you can have that housing and everything else, but you'll be putting it in the work for everybody else that comes behind you. There's a lot of dudes, you was upstate, there's a lot of weak dudes upstate. The people you spoke about are weak dudes. Not everybody on drugs is weak, but they're weaker than you, right? So God gave it to you for a reason. You got to ask yourself why God gave it to you, and how do you use it to make it come through for everybody else? I'm sorry, Senator, that took so long.
Yeah, I could just say one thing. Yes, I agree that everybody's not at the same place in life. Everybody doesn't have the same strengths. Sometimes I ask the question, God, why me? Why am I going through this? Why you put me through this? Why not me? Why not me? And oftentimes it's because if you believe in something higher than yourself, for me, it's because you have something. You have what it takes. You can bear it, and not just bear it, but bring it to a point where it makes change. And that's what happened here. That is what happened here today, and that's what we're celebrating. But we're going to keep on working and moving in a direction, and there are people that need more help than others. Some of us had less than others. We don't know everybody's story. We don't know what it is. I may have never seen someone as strong as you. Someone may never have seen someone as strong as another person. They didn't know that there was a way out. They didn't know there was a way to go about doing something. So we gotta be there for those people. Number 3. Who's number 3?
Yeah, I'm sorry, can I say this, brother, one time? I just wanna say,
Oh, I'm sorry.
your anger makes a lot of sense, so I don't wanna dismiss that, and how you're feeling. 'Cause I've been there, but I'd probably be mad too. I just wanna make sure that was named. The only thing I try to ask, and I'm not holding it now, so I don't even know what I can do, but we have to sometimes try to make sure that anger doesn't exclude other people from getting assistance, because they're not the ones that caused the situation you're in. And there is an ability to help everyone. We don't have to help some. Some are getting help because of the political realities that we're in. But the more that they allow our anger to look, say, this person over here is getting it, why am I getting it? They shouldn't even get it. It makes it hard to move forward. So I just want to name that your anger is righteous. We got to try to find a way to direct it so that you can get that support. Not that we are telling these other folks that they shouldn't get the help they need.
Well, Fredo, man, let me tell you, man, I know how you feel. Felt the energy relating to you automatically. Having spent 5.5 years up north, committed the ultimate sin, took a man's life, and figured I was done in society when I came home. You know, and trust me, everyone's afraid of you. Most family are. What are you gonna do, right? Where are you gonna go? I know that fear, I know that pain, and you know, creating this moment came with its privileges. You know, I was lucky to work for a criminal attorney. I was lucky to hang around the Tony Ricos of the world. But I understood that there was another world out there as well, Fredo. I can tell you about another man who's sitting at the table right now to the left of me. His name is Fellow. He works for an organization right there to tell you his history. I tell you where he's at right now, what he's doing right now. In fact, I tell you, 7 more of us out there who's doing just what I'm doing. Tara Simmons from Seattle, she's the first woman felon, now legislator. We have a speaker in the House of Virginia, Don Scott. We have 2 other legislators in Rhode Island. And we just have our brother Joel from DC who got elected while in prison. This thing's happening, we just have to apply ourselves and believe that we are here for a reason. Hope, I heard people say hope a lot. It's important. You gotta believe in yourself and believe in the movement. I'm not doing this just for me. You know, it's never about me. When I heard you say that, you know, it took me way back to Shawangunk. I was in Shawangunk the other day and I was talking to Chris Gonzalez, who has a double life sentence. And he's in a college prison, you know, Hudson Link and all the other organizations there. As well as another roommate next to him, Derek, who has 25 years of life. And have a shitload of accolades, tons of degrees, done many things in prison to turn his life around. Like he told me the day before yesterday, I got all this shit, Eddie, but where am I going? What does it mean? I'm gonna die with it here. I take that shit home with me every day with Fredo. I want you to know we ain't alone in this fight. Don Scott can't go in Virginia and promote that he's a speaker. He's a formerly incarcerated speaker. They would hate him out there in the States. Sometimes they take the movement slow, but steamboat, right? We got the fellows in the world. We got a few other organizations. I don't want to promote them. But, you know, get involved. See how important you are in this movement. You can see me afterwards too, okay, big bro?
Thank you. Number 3.
Peace.
This is good. I'm glad y'all evolved me to make this a reality. So it is. It's neat. I'm known as Devon. I'm known as Devon.
You need the mic.
I did 27 straight years in prison. I grew up in prison. those are my mentors. I got out. After 27 years, I was lied to about housing. I didn't give up. I didn't stop. Because I was raised with giants that knew how to make something happen out of nothing. I don't care, you could drop me in Beirut and I'm gonna survive. My mind and my attitude is never give up on me. Because if I give up on me, all hell's gonna break loose. Stay strong and don't give up. The key to what y'all doing, yes, it's a possibility. You just gotta keep nurturing it so people can understand the importance. Everything that you do is about public safety. When a person come out of prison, it's about public safety. Why? Because if they can't get a job, they can't find a place to live, what do you think will happen? There's already a frustrated individual being in prison for a long period of time. And if he's not being nurtured with right people, with right thinking, to be fair with all people, they're gonna go back out there and do the same thing. Now, I know Jemani, I worked with him numerous times. I worked with Hakeem Jeffries in Brooklyn on his campaign. The mindset is about your development. You have to, it's consistency. I'm no disrespect to your concept about hope. I'm not a hope addict. I'm about consistency and repetition of that consistency. If you don't be consistent and be sincere and genuine, it's not gonna happen. I came here because I wanted to hear those, because I was unclear about, the clean slate and how to expunge it, so on, etc. I wasn't here this morning because I'm a strong person, but I have 2 broken bones on my ankle, and I had this in the knee. I was supposed to go to the Bronx and meet with some young children who I mentor, or by men who, of course, men you're not alone. But I want to come here and I want to hear what y'all saying, see how it apply, because there's a tremendous amount of people in the city I do know, and my words carry weight. A lot of weight. You'd be surprised. I'm the dude that you don't know that will go in certain neighborhoods and nah, don't be that. Stop. And let's go. Let's have a walk. Let's sit down. I'll put some money in your pocket if I got it. I give you my last, just to keep you from coming back to prison, being a part of this industrial system. It's a new way of just being a slave. That's all it is. 13th Amendment United States Constitution says that's what it is. Once they convict you, then you're a ward of the state. Ward of the state means servitude. Servitude means you are a legal slave. We have to change the narrative of that. How you change the narrative? By a committee like this.
Exactly. It's very important to have this committee, and it's very important to have you, give your emphasis on, what you're hearing and seeing. Clean slate is important, but we also work on other legislation too, prior to clean slate, I have a gateway bill which, raises the rate of amount of money they give you when you leave prison. There's other legislation that's going to help individuals. I have passed one that require you to get your ID when you leave prison. So there's a lot of that we're working on. This isn't just one piece of legislation. Just want to let you know that. And if you have any idea, you can see us after. You see me at that. I love ideas.
The worst thing they could have ever done before, at one time, when the person was being released, they would give them at least 2 years before they go home. It's called pre-release. They had took out the pre-release program. I don't understand why. So now when people get ready to go home, they don't have nothing to work for, because everything you're gonna do for the next 2 years is about your release. Financial wise, your trade wise, a trade that's literally realistic to you actually going to get a job. If I didn't know how to think about these brothers I was around, I wouldn't be here standing here.
I want to talk to you after this is over about the pre-release program. Maybe you can help give me some ideas. Cool?
Yes, sir.
All right, cool.
Number 4.
I have a question.
Hold on.
It's by number.
It's number 4 or 5. You could be number 6. Number 4?
I'm number 4.
You were number 4? Okay.
First time state correction officer, right? Worked in 375 Atlantic Avenue. Time period. But I'm gonna give you a question.
Well, the mic is coming.
Yeah, that's better.
Well, actually,
Y'all got the first part.
Actually, you were number 4. He was number 4.
Oh, he was.
No, he was number 4.
I was number 3.
Yeah, I'm just gonna get myself.
No. This brother back here is number 4. Oh, I see. Okay. He was number 5. I don't know if you were in the list that she counted, but you'll be number 6. But good, you know what, you got the mic, go.
Yes, sir. 375 Atlantic Avenue gave out all types of writs for particular reasons. Habeas corpus, bill of particulars, show cause writ, 45-day writ. That's the speedy trial writ. My question to you, Mr. Warren, Esquire. I know how significant paralegal jobs are. So could you expound on that, so basically?
Well, I don't know if that deals with the legislation. I think paralegals are very important. Sometimes paralegals know more than the attorneys. So I mean, I think that those are that being a paralegal is very important in terms of people being able attorneys being able to do their job and to represent their clients as well as possible. And I don't think there's any, like I said, I have paralegals that know as much, if not more, than the attorneys, as well as people who become jailhouse lawyers. You know, they know it because it was their life. So I think that's important. I don't think the legislation deals with that. I think that's something different, but that's an important point. So I will take it to the brother who was number 4. Who's right over there?
Yes, hi, my name is Yannick Wood. I am a senior advisor, also attorney at National Urban League. And I just want to emphasize to the audience that this is the broadest clean slate bill in the entire country. So the types of offenses or convictions that are going to be sealed in this bill cannot be sealed in New Jersey, California, Texas, any other state. So I just want to keep that perspective. So in that vein, I'm very excited about this being actually going into effect today, and then seeing how this actually operates. So just a part of what I do is I interact with a lot of the Urban League affiliates around the country, and specific to this conversation, the ones in New York. And one question that's been coming up is implementation of this bill. So the law goes into effect today, but the Office of Court Administration has 3 years to actually implement this bill, to create the system that's going to be needed to actually seal these types of offenses. So what can I do, or what can you do, what can people in this room do to assist in making sure that this bill is implemented as soon as possible, that the Office of Court Administration doesn't drag their feet for 3 years when they can create a system that presumably when this bill was passed, and it's signed into law, they knew that they had to start doing that system, but they might not have actually started it. So we want them to move as quickly as possible. So what can we do to make sure that they move as quickly as possible to implement this bill? Thank you.
What's the office you said?
Office of Court Administration. It's the New York State office that administers the courts.
So it was just told to me in an eloquent way, but I'm going to translate it. We have to stay on top of them. And not luckily, but fortunately, we have elected officials that are about it, right? We have Zelda Myron, we have Gibbs, we have Claire, we have Conway, we have Brian Cunningham from Brooklyn. We have real solid elected officials that are going to stay on top of OCA. But what we want to do is, especially with the Urban League, we're going to, and I don't want to misspeak, but I think Senator Myrie is getting ready to put together a group of his colleagues, and we're going to get ready to do these all across the state. There's 62 counties in New York State, right? So in every county, we're going to be able to do this. And what we're going to do is, we're going to make sure we match the eligibility to the qualifications in the bill. And we're going with OCA, and it's not just OCA, it's the Division of Criminal Justice, and we're going to give them a list of people so that when they say they're going to go and start with the oldest first, we're going to give them 1,000 names and say, these are the names that we want you to work with. So while whoever it is in desk A is doing that, person in desk B could be doing this. And when that group of people start to call and say, has my record been sealed, then they will also have to be able to speak to the elected officials and say, hey, this organization, this agency that you guys have oversight are not doing their job, And we need to have a committee hearing, and that's how we're gonna stay on top of it and get it done. Yeah, sure.
Just a couple other things. First of all, cleanslateny.org, you can sign up for, it's a website run by advocates behind this bill. You can sign up for updates. As soon as the sealing happens, we're gonna let everyone know. And so you can get an email blast right away. If you wanna find out, are you qualified, when you will be qualified, again, we're offering legal services to look up your records down the hall. And then the advocates, in addition to the elected officials, have been in conversation with these agencies, and we know that they've hired the right people to implement it. We know that they're working on it right now. We know that the goal is to have it done before 3 years, but it's still up in the air when that's going to happen. But again, if you want to know as soon as we do when it happens, please sign up for our email alerts at cleanslateny.org.
Let me just before you say this, I think one of the points to take from this is that just because somebody's your elected official, you should be in contact with them, not just when election day or when they're coming for your vote, but just stay on top of them and make sure they do what they're supposed to be doing. That's true of anything through here. So hopefully it encourages people to see democracy as something more than voting every 2 years. Number 5.
Yes, it's a pleasure to be here, and I commend all the work that you're doing. It's very, very hard, it's unique. And some of you know my wrongful conviction. By the way, my name is Reverend Keith Finesse Gadsden. I've been wrongly convicted to serve 20 years to life. I went to 7 parole boards saying that I didn't do it. And they got to implement, you got to run in there and say that you did it. And so I couldn't lie on myself. Today, I stand here with a reactive homicide with the DA and my lawyer. And they both agreed that it was humanly impossible at the distance of 2.5 football fields away. And a destruction of evidence, a memorandum from my lawyer and the DA. And all I'm asking of all you, because my lawyer told me we need, because they denied it. They denied it. He says this does not substantiate my innocence. My lawyer has told me to come and get elected officials to support me with a letter of recommendation for my exoneration. And it curtails that you view the video act of the homicide and you read, perused the memorandum of destruction of evidence, fingerprints, everything that led to the actual perpetrators of the crime, it disappeared. One of the co-defendants I went to trial with, they dismissed that case. The district attorney agreed that it looked suspicious. Her dismissal, indictment, transcripts that should have included
Mr. Gadsden, Mr. Gadsden, I want to ask you a question.
Yes.
Is your question whether you can get letters that your lawyer asked
Yes,
for?
ma'am.
Okay, we'll talk to you individually about that.
Okay, so one question about the Clean Slate. From my experience, and I've been in contact with the criminal justice system, and I had dismissed cases, and I had them sealed. When I got convicted of this case, during the sentencing, that trial judge opened up those sealed cases. And she said I was getting away with murder. What can you do to stop a judge from reopening those sealed cases that were sealed?
So yeah, let me take this. The judge, the courts, the district attorney offices, police officers for particular investigative purposes, they're gonna still have access to the records that are sealed. That does not change with Clean Slate. What Clean Slate does is protect those records from being accessed by potential employers, by people that are applying for housing, for purposes of getting financial aid. But the courts will still have access to these records, and we can have a longer and separate conversation about what instances when they should have access to those records. You mentioned your wrongful conviction stuff. You know that we have worked on wrongful conviction legislation. We have actually passed it as a legislature. The governor has vetoed the wrongful conviction legislation. So we are still at work, and there is much more work to do. But Clean Slate does not curtail access by the courts to your conviction records.
Thank you so much. Listen, folks, this has been a very, very informative afternoon. I thank all our panelists today for just pouring out. Senator Myrie, thank you so much again and again. Thank you. You know, I'm looking at this panel, and this is a panel, and you know what I noticed everybody has in common? These are people that were not afraid to take that first step. You see, that first step, it's that first step sometimes people can't make. And Zelma making that step legislatively, Eddie making that step, becoming elected, going against the odds, going against what people say you couldn't do, going against all those things. These are not personal achievements. These are achievements that other people see and can look at and build on. The CSS being the first to even talk this nonsense. You know, because when you open your mouth, people, oh my God, she said that, he said that. So thank you for that, Ruben. You've been a first coming back, and you even inside, you know, to how dare you complain, and how dare you speak out, and how dare you come out and speak out. You know, these things being a first. Tony Rico, first all the way around, you know, you represent, you just represent, that's all I can say. Roger Ware, and being a first, you know, and being consistent with what you believe and what you do, and everything that you do. You're all great leaders, we're better because of it. We're gonna wrap this part of the day up in terms of this conversation. Some folks may hang around, you can ask questions and they can hang around, but we have people waiting in the room off to your left. If you want to be screened, if you want to ask questions on behalf of someone else, if you want to ask questions about yourself, if you want to know how you can take advantage of Clean Slate, we have people here waiting who are ready to answer those questions. We also have these tables here in the room, representatives from various organizations. And anything here is of interest to you, or if you need to talk to someone on workforce, talk to someone about some of the equity programs that are going on with the Urban League and Palante about housing, please take advantage of these services. But other than that, I just want to thank you so much for coming out today. Share the information. If people still have questions, they can come to my office. They can call my office. They can call Senator Myrie's office, Assemblyman Gibbs' office, Assemblyman Taylor, who is here. We're all there waiting to answer your questions, to refer you to the services you may need. Okay, we want this to work, and we want to continue doing this work. So we'll see you real soon. I hope there's a lot more that we get done, and this is how we're going to get through it. Take care.